Hello again, everybody. We're right here ready to go. Yes, indeed.
Lance Russell for Corey Macklin and Dave Brown ready to go with another big win right here today. And, boy, we've got a goodie, too. Got a six-man match coming up a little bit later, Dave. I'm going to be looking forward to.
We got the King going against prime-time Brian Lee in action here today, too. Also, want to bring everybody up to date. Several strange things going on in the USWA. We'll talk more about some of them later on. One of them, Brian Christopher injured a few days ago in a match. He has a broken shoulder blade, a scapula is the correct term for it. He's going to be out at least 6 weeks. Don't know all that. We'll update that situation in the days ahead.
Hope by maybe next week we'll have a more specific diagnosis on it, and that is what kind of prognosis and time and all that. But we're really sorry to say that Brian definitely is going to be out for a little while in there. Another incident, that's one of the bad news things. We just will get all the bad news out of the way. A match involving PG-13 and Rock and Roll Express in which senior referee Mark Curtis was in the corner of Rock and Roll Express. Randy Hales was in the corner of PG-13. It ended up in a very, very bad situation in which Randy did get hurt. You'll be seeing that a little bit later on, and I think you'll appreciate the severity of the situation. It was indeed a terrible situation, and it scared me to death back when I saw Randy and what had happened to him. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. We have a challenge coming out of Smoky Mountain Wrestling also with their champion and our champion, the King, and we'll be talking about that. Son of a gun, we've got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to look at because we got a bunch of matches lined up for you. We're going to take time out right here and now, and we'll be back ready to go with USWA Championship Wrestling in a moment.
Okay, our opening bout today on USWA Wrestling. One fall with a 10-minute time limit. First introducing 218 pounds, Memphis, Tennessee, T.D. Steele. His opponent today, making his way to the ring area, the USWA Heavyweight Champion from the Pacific Northwest, 280 pounds, out of Portland, Oregon, it's Billy Jack Haynes. One fall, a 10-minute time limit. Bill Rush, the official referee, to Lance Russell and Dave Brown.
I do not envy T.D. Steele being in there with the big guy from Portland, Oregon. I got to tell you, he is something that is absolutely, when he just looks over at you, you get nervous, or at least I get nervous.
Billy Jack wears the USWA heavyweight title. He won the belt, and he's been able to hold it. By the way, at the beginning of the program, we talked about the injury to Brian Christopher. I think I neglected to mention that he was injured in a match against Billy Jack Haynes.
Yes, it was. Billy Jack Haynes was the guy that Brian was in there with when the injury came about. We'll have a lot more details on it from the standpoint of when he's going to be able to come back and so forth. Look at Billy Jack going right to work. And as we've said about other wrestlers, he's the kind of guy that enjoys beating up on people in there, and he makes no bones about it. I guess that's the only thing you could say for him. It's no subterfuge. Whoa! Drop kick for a big 280-something pound guy to get up like that, Dave.
A lot of powerful with that much weight behind it. When he get off the mat like that, he really put TD down on the mat hard. Oh, my goodness. Snapped him down.
Russell, he can box, he can fight, he can do it all, Freddie.
You can do all of those things, Billy Jack. Nobody's denying that. He was quite a boxer, as a matter of fact, before he took up wrestling as a career. And TD still trying to fight back. One thing you got to say, TD, a lot of guts, boy, I'll tell you. Sometimes that may not be the advisable thing. Look at this suplex, and Billy Jack straight up in the air and put him over.
Took him about 6.5 feet up, straight up in the air, and then dropped him right down flat on the mat, right in the center. TD trying to shake the cobwebs away and get back on his feet. He does. He comes back at him, but Billy Jack has him up in the air and slams him down again.
I really believe he has a position where he could go ahead and go for the pin, but he's failing to do that. It's not the first time we've seen that kind of lack of concern for somebody that he's rolling. I'm not saying you have to be all cheery. Here he goes. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, he did it finally. T.D. Steele gave him a go, but there's only so much he could do with the big guy. The USWA heavyweight champion, Billy Jack Haynes, he has the title. And as Dave said earlier, he's been successful in holding it. But after the match with Brian Christopher, the thing that bothered me about him is he seemed to be real happy that the injury had been sustained by Brian Christopher the way it was. He's the kind of guy who enjoys inflicting that kind of pain on people like Brian Christopher.
Lance Russell, and all you ignorant Tennesseans out here, and you all shut up! To me.
Boy, I'll tell you, he's over to clean out the first 3 rows.
No, I've earned respect. I'm the USWA champion. Now shut your face. I told you, when I come in here, people are going to get hurt. Because I said pro wrestling's the toughest sport going today. I've been a street fighter, like I said, born and raised and grazed into boxing and wrestling for 15 years. I can bench press 450 pounds. I'm in shape, and no one can carry my jockstrap in the USWA, period. Now, I can't help it if some punk comes out here named Nunnery and he presents a trophy or whatever, so I pop him alongside the head and break his eardrum. Now, poor baby, you bet I'm proud of it. Now, Brian Christopher somehow got a broken shoulder blade. I wonder who did it. You're looking at him. Don't matter. It's funny to me. He's a tough kid, but he's not tough no more. So what I'm telling you all, and everybody out there in TV land, you better understand that Billy Jack Haynes rules the USWA. So bring on anybody, anytime, any place. I'm the USWA champion, y'all.
He is the USWA champion, Billy Jack Haynes. We'll take a break and be back in just a moment.
Yellow Jacket is in the ring right now, but his opponent, I want to get him by here just for a second if we can. Stephen Dunn. Stephen back in the USWA and got yourself a heavyweight title match, but against this very rugged, he was out here screaming a few minutes ago, Billy Jack Haynes.
That's right, Dave. But, you know, first, I just want to say how great it is to be back in the USWA. It's been a long time coming. You know, me and my partner, Rex King, we got our start right here in the USWA. We've been all over the world with the WWF. But, you know, frankly, Dave, that's just too much traveling. I've made Tennessee my home. I bought a house out in Hendersonville. I'm here in the area now. I'm here to stay. I want to show all these great fans what Well Done's all about. We're here to win titles and do it for the fans. How about that, huh? Come on. As far as Billy Jack Haynes goes, he's a rough, tough competitor. He's about as tough as they come. Me and him have tangled in the past. We've been up in Oregon, all over the place. Nobody comes tougher than Billy Jack Haynes. Let me tell you something. What he did to Brian Christopher cannot go unchecked. I'm telling these people right here, I'm making a promise to everybody involved. Oh, here we go.
Now, come on. He didn't interfere with your interview time.
It don't matter. I'm the champ. I make my own time. Now, you're out here running your mouth. You obviously didn't listen to Billy Jack Haynes. I said nobody, and nobody can carry my jockstrap in the USWA.
Hey, look. We got a match signed, Billy Jack Haynes, but it ain't right now. I got business in the ring.
Oh, what you're telling me? Oh, what you're telling me, then it's not right now.
No, you know we got title matches signed.
Oh, all right. Then I'll go ahead and take off. It's not right now.
Man, Stephen Dunn rolled in the ring.
Yeah, I'll show this other punk how he's going to carry my jockstrap.
What is this? Come on, Billy Jack, we got the match. Well, it looks like Billy Jack is going to take over the match from the Yellow Jacket. Stephen Dunn with a great drop kick, puts him down, rolls him down to the mat. Another drop kick. Stephen Dunn in control. Billy Jack Haynes rolls out of the ring. Whoa! Well, Mr. Champion, this may not be quite as easy as you thought it was going to be, huh?
Yeah. So, you decided it was a good time to get away, huh?
I don't know where you come from. Why don't you get your butt back to WWF? I rule the USWA.
Little different story, Dave.
You know, well, we'll talk about it in a minute. Oh, the Yellow Jacket jumps Stephen Dunn from behind. What's he thinking? My goodness, he's just watched Stephen Dunn get the upper hand over Billy Jack Haynes. Look at that snap. Oh, my goodness. You know, that's got to give Billy Jack some second thoughts about this title match coming up this week.
I think even more important than that, it's got to give Billy Jack some thoughts about the title match coming up this week. He found out this guy is not going to just lay around and let him beat on him, and that he's got some tough competition ahead of him.
No doubt about it. Yellow Jacket, boy, he made a mistake when he jumped Stephen Dunn from behind. Stephen Dunn has not let up on him yet. Got a 1, 2, and it's over. Stephen Dunn gets a victory, and a psychological victory over Billy Jack Haynes.
Maybe one of the bigger days for Stephen, and we'll take time out. Be back. We've got some great show coming for you. Really excited when we knew that we were going to have a match, and it turned into a series of matches with Rock and Roll Express from Smoky Mountain, the NWA World Tag Champs, and PG-13, because PG-13, you were here to see him from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Both of us were here to see Rock and Roll Express and Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson. We knew them when they were just kids running around. They're both second-generation wrestling families.
Couple of kids who molded into one of the finest tag teams ever.
Absolutely work as a team like nobody I've ever seen before, and that's the reason they've been able to hold the world title. Something happened on the way to the bank, as they say. Rock and Roll Express, and we've got a theory which we'll save and tell you a little bit later about what happened on it with PG-13 and everybody else. But right now, what we want you to do is go back with us. Randy Hales, I don't think it's any secret. Randy has been like a son to me. I've known him since he's 10 years old. He's a guy that's always wanted to be in wrestling, and I have a very special place for anybody who works that hard. He was in the corner of PG-13. Here's a young team, brash, no question about it. Folks love them because they go out and tell you what they're going to do, and they get the job done. Against Rock and Roll Express with Mark Curtis, who bears the handle of the senior referee for Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and that's something that's a misnomer to say the least. You take a look and tell me. Watch.
Up with that Rock and Roll Express reversal here. Here it is. That's the flip line. He got it. He got it. What an amazing turn of events. J.C. Ice went right over the top, rolled him up for a pin, and now Mark Curtis kicking and stomping on Randy Hales. Oh, no, he's got a spur. Ricky Morton got a spur off the boot of Mark Curtis. And Ricky just ripping him with that. Terrible. And Bill Rush, the referee, is down. They busted open Wolfie D. Rick Morton ripping down on Randy Hales. Randy is where he took that spur, split his head open. Now Mark Curtis, there's no excuse for that. Let's get somebody out here for crying out loud. Robert Gibson beating away on J.C. Ice.
Corey's gone around to see if he can help. Randy out, Rick Morton kicking at him. Why don't you guys grow up? Corey, see if he can get somebody back there. Corey running back, and look, and now they're pulling Randy Hale's coat down. He is covered with blood. J.C. Ice and Whoopi D are bleeding. Rock and Roll ends up losing it, and then they do it. Here comes Scott Studd, and he's met and thrown over the top rope. Brickhouse Brown from behind. Rock and Roll grabs Brickhouse, and now look at that lousy Curtis in there. You need somebody, Corey. Corey's gone back to get some more help. That's terrible. Come on, Ricky, get away from there. Leave him alone. You've already got all you can do. Why don't you leave him? Yeah, you would, too. And here comes back in the ring J.C. Ice, and Ricky Morton has got that spur from Mark Curtis's boot. That's what he split Randy open with. And now here comes Brian Christopher and Jerry Lawler. Boy, I'll tell you one thing. You sure got to be proud of yourself. Lawler and Christopher came in. That's the first aid personnel that are in there tending to Randy. Randy looked like Dave. He absolutely had been in a horrible car wreck. He was just, well, you saw the amount of excessive beating the Rock and Roll Express and Mark Curtis in particular. And one of the things that scared me to death was when I went back to the first aid room and I was talking to the ambulance people who were there. And they had told me Randy's blood pressure was like 140 over something in there, and boom, just that quick, it dropped 30 points down to 110. And it was one of those things that I've seen a lot of matches, seen a lot of guys get beat up, and you have too, Dave, by the bunches of them. But when it's somebody who is personally involved with it, it's a little bit different. And the circumstances.
And
that's
Randy's not a wrestler, for heaven's sake. I mean,
and Curtis. We mentioned it during the commentary of the match. He pulled, I'm telling you, he did. We saw him. He pulled off that spur off of the boots that he was wearing. That's what Ricky Morton had, and that's what he got to it. I was saying I had a theory about it. I think what it was, Rock and Roll Express, they started right here. The kids came into fruition as one of the great tag teams that we have ever seen. I mean, really, they still work as a tag team like nobody else around, hardly. But what happened? Time passed. They lost it here. They lost it there. They got the titles back and so forth. Not to say they can't go. But all of a sudden, they go against PG-13. I really look forward to that match. Got in there, had a heck of a match. But Rock and Roll with rabbit ears, they heard the way the crowd reacted to them. They heard them come in there and say, whoa, what happened to you folks? We were your favorites, and now you're rooting for PG-13. And I think they kind of got a little worried, not only from an ego standpoint that was happening, but from a challenge standpoint that maybe this scrawny little team that they talk about had more going for them than they thought. Well, I can tell you one thing, they have a lot to worry about. Rock and Roll Express, I absolutely cannot believe what they have turned into. And Mark Curtis, you're no head referee, you are a thug. And I say that without any hesitation at all. Listen, you want to hear, you want to know why? Take a listen to this interview coming up with Rock and Roll Express, and that will tell you what they are like. Take a listen to it.
I can't believe it. Randy Hills, what did I tell you? I told you, Randolph, if you stuck your nose into our business, not just Rock and Roll Express, but Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the NWA, if you stuck your nose in our business, that you were going to get hurt. Only in my wildest dreams did I ever believe how bad we were going to hurt you. Everybody in the Mid-South Coliseum, young fans, old fans, even that old decrepit old fossil Lance Russell had a tear running down his eye, just like that old Indian in those commercials. Does anybody ever cry whenever their promoter gets beat up? Like Don King? Nobody cares about Don King, but apparently in Memphis, everybody cares about you. We did it. Smoky Mountain Wrestling. It doesn't matter who it is. All the stars were upset because their promoter got hurt. Brian Lee, from the top to the bottom, the good and the bad, they were horrified at what we did. And we did it to the best of our ability. We did it because we're the true outlaws in professional wrestling, Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And Ricky, what do you got to say about the PG-13?
You know what amazes me? How these people think PG-13 are their greatest heroes of all time. But these heroes, what could they do? Because they was laying there helpless in a pool of blood. All we want to say is, guys, welcome to our world.
Yes, sir.
You see, guys, you was there. It took 20 or more of all the USWA wrestlers to come to the ring to get Rubber and I off of PG-13 and Randy Hill. You see, 20 of them, Robert. What's that make us? What does that make the Rock and Roll Express, and what does that make Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
Number one.
Now, after all the ambulances, the people climbed up, blood, the police, and everybody being down there, what happens? Eddie Martin gets up out of his wheelchair, goes over and calls Bob Armstrong, commissioner of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and demands that we come back to Memphis. But you know what's better than that, Robert? PG-13 wants a Texas death match with the Rock and Roll Express. Guys, didn't you learn your lesson last time? What are you thinking, idiots? What are you thinking? A Texas death match. Falls don't count. No disqualification. Falls count anywhere in the building. Guys, what are you asking for? You cannot stop this match on account of blood. You can't stop this match because you knocked the referee down, if it's one of USWA's. Of course. But guys, you understand this. If you think in your head for 1 minute that you're going to come and get revenge on the Smoky Mountain Wrestling or the Rock and Roll Express, you remember this, guys. Everybody has an opinion. And you know what our opinion is. This time, guys, you're not going to walk out. You're going to be laying in a hospital bed right beside Randy Hill. See ya.
Well, the only thing I think Rick Morton said it, and Mark Curtis in there, they're outlaws, which makes Smoky Mountain Wrestling a haven for outlaws, because they're the ones that's condoning the whole thing.
No doubt about it.
Hey, listen, I want to tell you something. Just get out of here. You're here for a coin toss. No, you don't get anything. You're here. Will you quit?
I want to tell you people something.
Give me the microphone. You're not going to have an interview in here.
What do you mean?
This is the way I treat you, because you're a thug and that's all there is to it. Now get out of here and wait. We don't have to interview you. Just get out of here. I'm telling you, you better get out of here right now. We'll have you
Don't put your hands on him.
No excuse to that. Spur, look at you guys, for crying out loud. They took that spur, they took boots, beat you guys. We've done a lot of talking. By the way, Randy is out of the hospital, and he's doing okay, but not as good as we would like. And you guys are back and ready and talking Texas Tornado death.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, I'd like to just say something about Randy there. You know, a lot of people, they watch Randy come out on this television show, and they think all Randy is just the big, tall, skinny guy that comes out here and runs people off and finds them and, you know, gets shoved down occasionally maybe or something like that. But there's another side that you know and that he knows, and that is one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my whole life, man, in my whole life. Randy Hales will give you the shirt off of his back if he likes you. Now, see, when JC and myself, when we go out there and we get busted open, it's a little different, man. You know, we kind of expect to get hurt. We expect things like that to happen to us. But when you see Randy Hales laying there in a puddle of blood, man, you can't help but to feel sorry for the guy. I ended up taking him to the hospital. As you know, they said his blood pressure had dropped 30 points, man.
Right.
You know, the guy could have hemorrhaged. He could have, you know, did anything. This guy helps everybody in this company, man. He works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for all of us here that work for this company. He dedicates his life to professional wrestling. His phone's ringing off the wall all day long. He eats, breathes, sleeps professional wrestling. And for a guy like that to get that kind of treatment is just totally wrong, man. It really bothers me.
I gotta interrupt you here, Wolfie, to say this, that outside of Dave, which is one of the major reasons that I came back to work, and I'm delighted to be back here, Randy Hales is one of the reasons that I came back working too. Straight shooter and a guy just as honest as the day is long, and he's the kind of guy you love to call a friend.
That's right, he sure is. I want to send a message to the Rock and Roll Express because I know what they're thinking right now is that, man, they are on top of the world. They're walking tall and they're loving what they did. I just want you to think. I want you to get Tommy Rich's phone number or Doug Gilbert's phone number. I want you to call them up, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, and I want you to ask them, hey, bro, what happens when you get PG-13s back against the wall? Tommy Rich is going to tell you that it hurt real bad. He put my eye out, if you'll remember. Yes, but an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You ask him what it felt like when we threw that arm over that rope, and I took that ball back, and whoo, I whacked him right across there and broke it in 2 places. You ask him what it felt like to walk around in a cast, Ricky Morton, because something real bad is going to happen to you, and I promise.
JC, it was not a pleasant experience meeting with the Rock and Roll Express and all that happened in there, but I've seen you guys get even before.
That's right, Lance, and you know, this ain't my first rodeo. I've been around violence all my life because everybody in the world knows that Bill Dundee is my father, and he come home a many a week with black eyes, busted lips and mouth and head. But you see, he's a wrestler. Randy Hill isn't. And last week, in the middle of that ring, man, it looked like something out of a Vietnam clip. Man, it was the most unreal thing. There was blood this deep, man. So what we done is we went to Eddie Marlin. We said, Eddie Marlin, we want a match with the Rock and Roll Express. We want a Texas death match. But we ain't in Texas. I don't want to call it a Texas death match no more. I want to call it a Boys in the Hood death match. That's what I want to call it, because this is my hood. And when you come to our hood, rock and roll, it's time to pay. So you see, it all started out as a wrestling match. Yeah. And JC Ice and Wolfie D defeated the Rock and Roll Express in a wrestling match to prove that we was in the 90s. But now it's gone to the ego. Now they got to take it personal. Now when they get a man down, they got to beat you. But you see, Jamie Dundee and Kelly Wolf are tired of punks running over us trying to make names off of PG-13. So this week, Rock and Roll Express, you may have defeated more teams than us. You may have been around 10 years longer than us. You may have won more titles than us. But this ain't nothing about titles, nothing about nothing. This is personal. This is JC Ice, Jamie Dundee, Kelly Wolf, Wolfie D against you, Ricky Morton, and Robert Gibson in a Boys in the Hood death match. And I promise to my mother, and you can ask Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert about when you mess with our mothers. I promise on my mother, Rock and Roll Express is going out in an ambulance, and the boys from the hood are hip-hopping all the way back to the hood.
They mean it, I'll tell you that. We're going to take time out. Got great action coming up with the King and primetime Brian Lee a little bit later. Buddy Landell, Jim Cornette. I got to tell you, there's multiple mouths when you put those guys together.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. You know, a lot of noise coming out of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the SMW these days. One thing that has happened, and more about that as we go along here, but in just moments, we're going to have a coin toss.
Yes.
The coin toss is set up because there is a unified title match, and what Smoky Mountain has protested, and they've demanded that they have this coin tossed, and it'll take place here in just a few minutes. But as you said, and you get Landell and Cornette going.
Well, it's all of these lame things about the referees are in the pockets of Lawler and Dundee, and I've heard that routine and all that. Let's take a listen to what Cornette and Landell had to say.
No, I know what you're thinking, but it's not true. It's not General George S. Patton or maybe General Norman Schwarzkopf standing here. No, not any of those flunkies. It's General Jim Cornette of Cornette's Militia and my top lieutenant, Nature Boy Buddy Landell. And I know all you people out there in the USWA, you're in a state of turmoil, a state of shock, because after the last few weeks, anything can happen. First of all, a Smoky Mountain Wrestling referee, not even a wrestler, mind you, but a referee comes to the USWA and hospitalizes your promoter, Randy Hales, puts him in a hospital in critical condition, had the ambulance crews, had the paramedics in a panic, had all the USWA wrestlers crowding around the ring thinking that their boss was going to go to the hospital or maybe even a graveyard, and everybody was all upset. And then PG-13, your supposed greatest tag team, they can't handle the Rock and Roll Express. The Rock and Roll Express nearly put them in the hospital and looked like Vietnam. I don't know what PG-13 was thinking anyway, because if I've had trouble in the past beating the Rock and Roll Express, a couple of little punks like that wouldn't stand a chance. And now the coup de grace, the crowning glory, my top lieutenant, Nature Boy Buddy Landell, is coming to the USWA for a unified world title match with Jerry the King Lawler, a guy who's been on top of the mountain for a long time. But Lawler, just like the city of Memphis, Tennessee, you were built on a bluff. And Cornette's Militia and Buddy Landell in particular are going to call your bluff, because if I rule Smoky Mountain Wrestling and Smoky Mountain Wrestling dominates the USWA, Happy New Year. That means I'm the big man. So, Budrow, you are the Nature Boy, and all you got to do is go to the USWA and take that unified world title from Jerry the King Lawler, and then everybody will know who the dominant force in professional wrestling really is.
You see, let me put it to you like this, Jerry Lawler. I've been up and down since I turned 17. I've been on top and seen my wildest dreams. I got it back. I'm feeling better every day. Tell all them pencil pushers to get out of my way. You see, Jerry Lawler, up till about a year ago, I was my own worst enemy. I've been on top of this business. I made an awful lot of money, man, and I blew it. But a year ago, I defeated my own worst enemy, which is myself. I lost 50 pounds, Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion. I've defeated everybody here, and I come there a couple of weeks ago, and you had the audacity to stick me in the ring with a puke like Steve Dunn. I blew him up in 3 minutes and kicked a mud hole in him, and then I walked it dry. And you see, what I'm talking about now is I need that unified title to accomplish another goal. I want to be a world champion, whether it's going to be in the WWF, wherever it's going to be. I'm world championship material. And let me explain something to you. An awful lot of people have written Smoky Mountain Wrestling off. Well, let me tell you something. Smoky Mountain Wrestling's where it's at. See, because the guys are here, can't get a job nowhere else because we're mean and nasty. I've been told by Eddie Marlin, pack your bags up and leave. We're a family business, and you just don't fit in with our plans. Well, that's fine, because I found a place where I fit in and fit in well, and that's Smoky Mountain Wrestling, baby. And I'm the man that stirs the drink here, Jack. So, Jerry Lawler, you've been around a long time. You lived a good life. But let me clue you in on something. I'm better than I've ever been before in my life. No, come on now. What are you talking about? Calm down. Don't have a stroke like Lance Russell. The reason why I'm here today is because... No, wait. The reason why I'm here today is because the USWA heavyweight title is going to be on the line. The World Unified Belt, Buddy Landell versus Jerry Lawler. Now, when we heard about this, and knowing how your referees do business around here, okay, they sent me down here to make sure that things were done properly. And the reason why things have been done properly is because you got crooked referees like this yo-yo running around here. And
You know what happened? We called, we begged, and I wanted to make sure things were all right. But no, they wouldn't let me referee this match. So we almost had to throw in a lawsuit on it to get them to agree to a coin toss. So today we're going to have a coin toss, which I'm sure I'm going to win. And I don't know about this, Yo-Yo, but whenever you're ready to...
I'm ready. I've got the coin, and you just... What do you... Call heads and tails, each of you. Heads, Curtis, tails. Here we go.
Tails!
Tails.
Yes!
It is.
Yes!
It's tails.
Well, that's
Right,
not
it's
done
tails.
good news.
Yes! I am going to be the referee, and things are going to go nice and fair, down to even.
You're done.
Let's just hope
You were here for the coin toss, and that's all that you were allowed to be here for.
That's right, I won. It's going to be called down the middle, fair and square.
We'll see when that
Yeah, down the middle, fair and square. You wouldn't know fair and square if it ran over you. Okay, we got a big match coming up, Corey, with the King in prime time. Take it away.
Okay, buddy, we're ready right here on USWA Championship Wrestling. One fall, a 10-minute time limit. Making his way to the ring area, led by Brendan Baxter, 289 pounds. It's primetime Brian Lee. His opponent today, the unified world heavyweight champion at 234 pounds, from Memphis, Tennessee, Cherry the King Lawler. Bill Rush is the referee assigned for
The
this bout.
King in primetime Brian Lee. And I'll tell you, after having to put up with that Curtis being around here, I'm not in the mood for Brandon Baxter. I can tell you that for a fact.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
Oh,
Things don't
man.
get any better. But I tell you what, with this Curtis, of course, Lawler's unified title defense coming up this week against Buddy Landell, and with a coin toss, that is something that the USWA had hoped after seeing the way Curtis has, and I use the word loosely, refereed matches before. They wanted a referee who would call it down the middle. But then the SMW, the Smoky Mountain Wrestling folks, as Curtis indicated, threatened a lawsuit. So the settlement was, all right, we'll have a coin toss, and then whoever wins, it'll be either you or a USWA referee. And Curtis has just won. I'm still stunned.
Not good news for the King. But he's got more immediate things on his mind right now, because here's 280 pounds of bad intentions facing him right across the ring. Whoa! Now that's the Jerry Lawler we know. He can do it to you. He gets a guy like Brian Lee, and he just rattles it. He goes back. Uh-oh. I think Lee's been reading some of Jerry's book, put to the midsection.
He comes after it back in the corner. Brandon Baxter yelling and screaming from outside. He's over at Brian Lee's corner. Well, not for long. He grabs Lawler, chokes him with a rope, hits him with a right fist. Brian Lee celebrating. Chop across the top of the head. Lawler brings his strap down. Look out, Brian Lee.
Whoa, good right hand. And Brian Lee gets aided from Brandon Baxter. Uh-oh, Lawler grabs him, pulls him right up into the ring, but that means turning your back on Brian Lee. Not a good idea. Iron Man Jimmy Harris coming over, Dave, grabs a leg of Lawler as Baxter's going at him. Primetime Brian Lee holding him from behind. He needs some help out there. Ring the bell, it's about time. Crying out loud. You got three of them jumping on Lawler. Here comes PG-13. Hubcaps and all, and that's a little help.
He needs help.
Yeah, 3-on-1. I guess he needs help. We've got to take time out here, and we're going to be back in just a moment.